Thursday, the 7th of December. I'm Stephen Ridgway. So, been a lot of umming and ahhing about end-to-end encryption, over the last year or so. Various messaging services that you would have thought were more secure than they actually were have kind of put their hands up and said actually they're not terribly secure. And then there's been a whole load of work done around end-to-end encryption for messaging services. Well, the latest one that has officially announced that its default is now end-to-end encryption for chats and calls is Facebook Messenger. This is I think a good thing if you are privacy focused. I think. I should say though that at the moment for group chats, end-to-end encryption is still in beta testing. So this is specifically for one-to-one, single people conversations, or two people conversations, you know what I mean, single recipient type conversations, which is I think is a good thing. I'm a supporter of privacy. I think that some of the anti-encryption arguments are kind of based off almost based off laziness around how can they get good information. Law enforcement, yes, okay, obviously we want to support law enforcement, but equally we don't, I think, need to be able to eavesdrop on absolutely everybody, because there are a few targeted people that we should be able to get to focus on. So I think this is a good thing. It will be interesting though, especially in the UK, to see what happens, because around the online safety bill, which has been passed in the UK. Now, I don't know quite at what point a bill becomes a law and the law becomes something that's actually being enforced, as opposed to something which is talked about being enforced. But that very much goes against this principle of allowing people to carry on their business without interference from the government. So we will see, and we've been around the arguments on that one. However, this is, I think, a good step forward for. When I say this, I mean Meta launching encryption for their messenger service. I think it's a good thing. It has been kind of missing compared to WhatsApp and Signal and Telegram and the others that are have basically been more comprehensively encrypted for quite a while. So yeah, good thing, worth knowing about. Let's see whether there are political ramifications. Okay, so the next thing I came across this morning is kind of in that bucket of, oh no, not again, and what can I do about this? So academic researchers have developed a new side channel attack for Intel, AMD, and ARM processors. Excuse me, which aims to exploit the architectural designs that were introduced to improve security on the latest and future versions of those CPUs. It's called SLAM, which is okay. So first, a bit of an explanation. So CPU vendors are have introduced ways in which they've changed the ways in which memory kernel memory can be addressed. So Intel calls it linear address masking, as in LAM. AMD calls it upper address ignore, UAI, and ARM refers to it as top byte ignore, TBI. But if we take LAM as being probably the most common name, they're calling this particular side channel attack SLAM, as in Spectre based on LAM. Comes out of a university research group in Amsterdam, and they've demonstrated its validity on they've been working specifically on the last generation Ubuntu systems in order to test this. It is possible to do things like leak the root password hash using these sorts of things. Now, it's a little bit complicated, and I'm not even going to pretend that I understand how some of this kernel level memory management stuff works. However, it is a little bit in the arena of you've got to be an academic researcher to do this stuff, but you've got to bear in mind that once it's made known and once it's published, it will be used by a combination of over enthusiastic government agencies and criminals. Don't ask me to define the difference. The attack basically leverages a new transient execution technique that focuses on exploiting a previously unexplored class of Spectre disclosed gadgets, and that's specifically in this case those involving pointer chasing. Now, if you're writing kernel code, you probably know exactly what that means. As for the rest of us, we will nod sagely and agree. Right now, there's been a mixed response from the vendors. ARM it's unclear whether ARM has really grasped this one. They are saying that their system's already mitigated against Spectre version 2 and Spectre BHB, and they're not planning on any further response to SLAM. Well, that might have missed the point, uncertain. AMD also points to their protections for Spectre v2 and say that this should address SLAM, but they have not offered any further guidance. Intel has announced plans for providing software guidance, and they are looking in the future to make changes to processes that support LAM, and those changes will involve things like linear address space separation, and which would, in this case, prevent speculative address access across user kernel mode. So, yeah, basically a bit of a mixed bag with this one. Again, if you are concerned about these side channel attacks, I'm kind of guessing that you're in some highly insecure environments and you've got some very sophisticated adversaries. This stuff isn't easy to execute. However, what has happened as a consequence of this is Linux engineers have created patches that will disable LAM, or whatever the variations are called. So if you're in an environment where this stuff really matters, worth having a look to see whether there are patches available to the operating systems that will at least give you some mitigations against this particular risk. And then finally from me today, again, I'm having a bit of a government bashing day. A US senator has disclosed information that shows that the US government, or no, not the US government specifically, but governments in general, are spying on Apple and Google users via mobile notifications. Now, the way that this particular piece of intrusion works is that they demand government agencies around the world have been demanding details of push notifications from Apple and Google's notification gateways. Now, how does your phone, your mobile device, know that there are new messages, emails, or whatever? Well, there's kind of two ways you can do it. One is that the device checks in periodically, which is kind of old-fashioned way of doing it, but relatively straightforward and easy to configure and secure. So your device checks in, asks the server, "Is there anything for me?" And then picks it up if there is. The other way is that the server proactively goes out and prods devices to say, "Hey, I've got a message for X," which then prompts the mobile device to go and get the message. Now that's the information that is being collected. You might think, well, why does that matter? Why would governments care about this stuff? Well, it's actually a very simple, centralized way for government agencies to link devices and accounts, user accounts. So it's adding kind of metadata to the stuff that they may already be gathering about you. Now, up until this announcement, Apple and Google have been gagged from telling users, it appears, that when governments ask for, and we're not just talking about US or UK or whatever, we're talking about governments around the world, have been asking for this information. However, now, because it has now become public knowledge, both Apple and Google are pressing to be permitted to notify users in the way that they do, unless they're specifically told not to by a court. They will notify users if their information has been requested by a government or law enforcement agency. So this little piece of extra metadata now does get covered by this sort of transparency, hopefully, going forward. So yeah, interesting one. You wouldn't really think of it, but well, if there's a way of gathering data, you can bet your bottom dollar there's a government somewhere that's trying to do it. That is enough from me today. Bit of a rant again. Never mind, that's the way it goes. I hope you have a great Thursday, and I will speak to you all again tomorrow.